in numbers too big to
Hey,
ignore.
Julie Davis here
And
with
I
another
know too
episode
much
of
to
Women in Real
go
Estate
back and
series. And this week we are bringing you an incredible woman in real estate, not a practitioner, but someone who supports our property management industry. So I would love to welcome you, Ellen Bathgate.
Thank you
How
so
are
much
you?
for having me, Julie.
Absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. I thought it only made sense. You know, we talked about, and we've got like a lot of interviews and podcasts of practitioners within our industry. So whether they're an agent, property manager, principal, commercial, and I thought, you know what? There's so many other women out there that have gone through the ranks and realised that they could really support the industry through their success and knowledge. So, and you are a bit of a dynamo in the industry. For those who know, Ellen, you're based in Sydney.
Yes.
Yeah, and you're currently in Sydney because Matt is a pilot, yes?
Yes, he's a
And
helicopter pilot.
a helicopter pilot, and he's doing some flying in Sydney. So you're up there for a little bit, but of course your business, you can take your business wherever you go. And I know that largely you're online as well.
Yes.
A bit of a backstory though. Hey, we met, when did we meet? Long before today.
Yes, we must have met in about 2008, 2009, when I had actually taken a little break from the real estate industry and I had bought a beauty salon. And that was the time you and I met while I was in that stage in my career. I'd done about 6 years in real estate and burnt out, had gone and had a little break, bought myself a beauty salon. But the pull of real estate was too strong and I ended up back in the industry in 2010.
I know what you mean. So you come and stayed at my house. So like, isn't it amazing? People that you meet and you never ever know when your paths are going to cross. You come with a mutual friend and you come and stayed, and I think we went to a seminar or something like that. And so, you know, and then we run into each other years ago and I know her. She came and stayed at my house. So that was back in the day, which was awesome. And it's such a pleasure to catch up with you because I think your service, I know that what you do, Rent Roll Starter, is so valuable to so many businesses. Now, I'm actually like to go through a little bit later on the types of services that you offer because you have quite a varied array, plus you have some really great free resources as well on your website, and is to teach someone how to go from 0 properties to, how many was that?
200.
200, which is great. You've certainly got the results there. And I think more than ever, people, your rent roll is the most important part of your business, right? Because it's your asset. Yes. It's what you have to sell, to retire on, to step out of for your future. And it's so important that you grow a healthy rent roll. And I would love for you to probably share your top 5 tips on why it's so important and what people, or maybe what they shouldn't do in terms of expanding their rent roll.
Yeah, sure. So I can certainly share the what to do, and I can also share the what not to do because I've done both. So when I started my rent roll from scratch, I actually started from 0. I had no properties at all, and I had decided that my business would be property management only. So I didn't have a sales team, certainly not an in-house sales team. So a couple of the things that I did wrong in the beginning was I remember thinking that if I put a website up and published my phone number, I just thought that somehow landlords would come to me. I thought it would be like this field of dreams situation. And that is not what happens. They don't just start ringing you. And I mean, maybe if you're an established brand in the area and people know your face and stuff like that, maybe they do. But that certainly wasn't my story. I was new to the area and nobody rang me. I didn't get a single property for 6 weeks. And I realized that if I maintained that sort of growth, I was going to be out of business pretty quickly.
Mm.
Um,
So let's step back one step, Ellen.
so
So you had worked in property management before, prior to, and so what was your thinking and what was the driver for you to start off your own rent roll?
yeah, so I had worked in property management for 6 or 7 years before, and um, following following about 6 years in property management, I stepped away from the industry and bought a beauty salon, as we mentioned
Mm-hmm.
earlier. And I discovered that I loved working for myself. I liked being the boss because I just loved that all the successes were ultimately to my credit, but also when things went wrong, I got to decide how we dealt with things
Mm-hmm.
going wrong as well. And I liked that too, even though that wasn't as fun as setting goals and achieving them. It was still really fun getting to choose how we handled when things went wrong. So when I sold my beauty salon, I knew that I wanted to be back in property management again. And I knew that I had to be the boss. I wanted to grow a business my way and offer property management services in a way that was different to what I had seen in my local marketplace. And so that's what I did.
And so how long did it take you to sort of establish your first 50 properties? So, or what did you do strategically in terms of knowing that you put your website up,
Yes.
the phone wasn't ringing, 6 weeks, no property, and you thought, okay, at this
Oh,
rate,
dear.
I'm really got a problem.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So what changed for you? Like what was your thinking around that, or the resources that you decided to use or develop?
Yeah, so I love that you asked me what was like, what did I do strategically? Because I would love to tell you that I formulated this amazing strategy and executed it. But in the beginning, I was just experimenting to see what on earth might work. So that's part of the reason I have the business I have today, so that people don't have to do what I did and just experiment with a bunch of things. But the things that I found worked beautifully and suited my personality type
Mhm.
was networking with similar or complementary business owners in town. That worked really nicely for me. I'm certainly not the type of person who likes cold calling or door knocking. So
Yeah.
sitting down and having a coffee with a mortgage broker or a solicitor or a conveyancer or a financial planner or an accountant, or even salespeople from other agencies, because we didn't have a sales department.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
networking with salespeople as well, that was where we started to actually get growth. So that was probably the first moment I had in my rent roll growth phase where I just went, oh my goodness, I found something that works.
Mhm. It's called flow.
Yes. Yes. I
Yeah.
didn't call it that at the time, but that is exactly what it is.
Yeah, that's right. It's when it becomes effortless and easy that just stuff starts showing up, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Now let's talk. So what then led you from there to now to Rent Roll Starter,
Yeah.
and you've been going a number of years now. So what did you say? You decided to sell your rent roll?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and thought through my learning and lived experience,
Yeah.
you have a knowledge to impart to others. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I sold my rent roll in 2016. We had some family changes, and my husband and I needed to move to be closer to some family. And I honestly didn't know what I was going to do after selling my rent roll. But then I received 2 phone calls from 2 different people who owned sales businesses that used to refer business to me when I owned my property management department. And they said to me, now that you're not here for me to refer landlords to, I'm going to start my own rent roll.
Mm-hmm.
And they asked if I could help. And I said, yes, I could help with that. And what I realized in working with just those 2 people, I discovered that there were a whole bunch of things that I did wrong that I could help people avoid. And there were a whole bunch of things that worked really well for me as well in terms of growth strategies, that some of them I discovered early on, but some of them I didn't discover till, 2 and 3 years down the track. And I never had a big marketing budget. So I was always using strategies that were either completely free or very cheap. And so I discovered that in working with these two salespeople who wanted to start their rent rolls, I discovered that I had a bunch of knowledge that I could share with other people who were in the early stages of growing their rent roll on how they can grow without spending too much money and without making too many mistakes.
So, quick question for you. If somebody says to you, I think I'm going to go and buy a rent roll, what do you say to them?
I always ask if they have a sales department first, because if they don't have a sales department, I've not seen value in buying a rent roll if you don't also have a sales department, because that rent roll costs a fair bit of money per property. It'll take you 3 to 4 to 5 years plus the interest to pay off each of those properties. And if you don't have the capacity to also make sales commission on them, I encourage people to think carefully about that. Because I know that you can grow a rent roll organically without buying a rent roll, and because I've seen it done relatively quickly, I know that buying a rent roll isn't always the best solution for every agency. It's a great solution for some, but a lot of people who I work with don't have the budget to cash flow a rent roll purchase. And that might just be don't have the budget to come up with the deposit. So I don't say no, but I ask people to carefully consider what it might cost them in time or money to just grow that rent roll themselves.
I am a big fan of organically growing a rent roll. You have quality control. There's no little surprises, and there's no after the retention period. Well, we all know what can happen. So let's talk specifically about your services.
Sure.
Okay, and because you're quite varied on your website, and if anyone hasn't been to your website, it's rentrollstarter.com.au.
That's it.
And you talk about several strategies on there. Can you just probably give us an overview, because I think it's going to be really helpful to our viewers that potentially may need to have some support. And it gives the different options there.
So because I'm really passionate about helping people grow their rent rolls using cheap or often free marketing strategies, that's a lot of what I share on my website. So if you come to rentrollstarter.com.au and you're looking for support, you're either looking for one-on-one support where I'll actually coach and mentor you in the early stages of growing your rent roll. So that might be you have 0 properties. It might be that you've got 50 properties. I usually don't work with people who have more than 200 properties, because quite often they're at a stage where they can employ a BDM. And my expertise is coaching the owner of the business, not the BDM. So I support people in that capacity. And then we also have a rent roll growth training program, which is a digital program that people can work through at their own pace. And we call that marketing school, because it taps into all of the marketing strategies that have worked for me and teaches people step by step how to implement them into their rent roll. And they're both online strategies and offline strategies. And then finally, because social media is one of the areas that I really love for business growth, because we can tap into it for free, I also run a social media membership that is really focused on rent roll growth, and we call that the Content Club. And it allows people to access pre-written social media content every single month, especially for their rent roll growth, especially for their property management department. And they can just download the templates, modify them a little bit to sound like them, and incorporate them into their social media plan.
And I would think that would be a very popular resource for people, because it's one of the biggest challenges in terms of, how do I grow my rent roll? How do I get out there? How do I get onto Facebook? and or what other digital platform, and having that, I guess that mentorship, and in terms of your, obviously your knowledge and wisdom in terms of what do we need to say, how does it put, and it's just really copy paste and tweak.
Yes.
That, and I know that it's a very reasonable investment to do that with you as well. So I would think that that would be something definitely that that you would have a large call on for business.
It's quite popular. Yeah.
I'm sure. And you've also got a number of ebooks as well that you've written that you can purchase from your website.
Yes, that's right. So I'm a big fan of encouraging any prospective landlords who are visiting your website to opt into your database, and having an ebook or a lead magnet is a great way to encourage landlords to hand over their contact details to you. So if you don't have time to write the ebook yourself, you can buy it from my website.
And you'll assist them obviously with that whole marketing process, through there.
Yeah. So we have a selection of templates as well that can work in with that particular marketing strategy. And we teach that particular strategy inside Marketing School, which is our digital program, because it's really effective. If you're going to send people to your website, you want to capture their details.
Yes, and you've got to know what to do with it afterwards. So so that's really awesome. So can you give us, I guess, probably a bit of a story or a case study of somebody that you've helped grow the rent roll and what their results have been?
Yeah, sure. So one of, I was going to say one of my favorite clients. That's not really appropriate to say.
You've got to be careful. No, it's not.
So someone who comes to mind immediately is a lady by the name of Amanda Turner, who owns Opulence Property Queensland. And so she offers a property management service and a buyer's agency service, and she services Toowoomba and Brisbane. I love her story because she actually picked up her first 5 managements as a result of her social media presence before she even officially launched her agency.
Wow.
So she's a member of the Content Club. She has been through our digital program, Marketing School. And I think the most important thing to note is she's really good at implementing. So she doesn't just enroll in the program, she actually does the work as well.
Yeah.
And so I just think that she's in some ways the exact opposite of my story, in that I launched my business, put myself, got a website, got a social media account, and then did nothing and got no properties for 6 weeks. She has done the opposite. She became really proactive on her social media. She did lots of focus on creating educational content, and she uses some of our content and she creates some of her own, and picked up her first 5 managements as a result of social media. Wasn't even ready to sign them up when they came.
Wow.
So
isn't that fantastic?
Yeah, and she has quite a successful business now. She has lots more properties now, and she has 2 locations when she used to only operate out of 1 location. So she's really expanded. But I just think that's such a good example of what's possible.
And having a strategy. But I think also the other thing is, Alan, is you've got to have someone who's got your back.
Yeah.
Right? You have to have that go-to person.
Yeah. That's
got more experience than you, that can actually be there to support you. Because, it can be a really, particularly if you're a solo operator, it can be a really lonely and frustrating journey. And
really, especially if you've stepped out of a property management team. That was something I struggled with a lot. I had gone from working with a team to then working from my spare bedroom at home. And especially when you're in property management, perhaps in sales, but I know in property management, there were so many times that when I was working in a team, I would spin my chair around to talk to the rest of my teammates and say, I've got this situation. What do you think we should do? And when you're especially in those first few years and you're starting and you're all by yourself, you don't have someone that you can just spin your chair around and talk to.
Yeah.
So having someone, whether it's a coach or a mentor in a paid capacity, or someone who's just further along in the journey than you, that you can, metaphorically spin your chair around or pick up the phone and just go, what do you reckon about this?
Yeah.
Because it is really lonely.
And look, having said that, that's exactly why we started the Women in Real Estate Success Series. Just because I wholeheartedly believe that as an industry of women, that we are so open to give and to support and share our knowledge and experience and our wisdom with others. And, that's certainly the feedback that I've got since I've started, and that the people will resonate with resonate with something they hear on one of the videos or podcasts, and then each and every person, I can promise you, that has been on the series is very open to taking a phone call, giving some help. So I just really think that, we've got, we define success as women through really helping others, and that's certainly why I started the series. So it's been fabulous.
Yeah, and I tend to agree. It's remarkable how many people are willing to help. It's especially women willing to help other women in the industry.
Yeah, I think as a community, I think that we are starting to really come together and to be more collaborative overall.
Yeah.
Because it's something that, we're in a very competitive industry, and, sadly it's a win-lose situation. You don't come in second and still get something. It's either you come in first or you lose. It's highly competitive, and sometimes sadly it's highly competitive within an office as well.
Yeah.
Where you have that competition in there, which is really quite sad. That it's fine to have it on a fair playing field, right? It's a sport, and it's not. And this is what I say, about real estate, because it is real estate is something that can become very obsessive because it just doesn't fit into a 9-to-5 framework.
Yes.
And the important thing, and it certainly happened to me when I was a practitioner.
Yeah. And
I got really scared one day, and I thought, do you know what? I really can't hold a conversation unless it's got something to do with real estate. And my life is very, very one-dimensional. And sadly, that's how we get in the industry sometimes. And it's something that we need to really, really be mindful of. And I'm just actually going to give a plug here for the RISE conference. And anyone who doesn't have the Real Care app, I'm not sure whether you've got it or not, Ellen. It's an awesome app that supports our industry in terms of any sort of mental health. And we know the last 2 years, a lot of people have been going through this struggle. So if there isn't someone there that you can reach out to, grab the Real Care app and download it. And it's got some really good tools in there to help you, because sadly, and over the past couple of years, we've lost some really good people in our industry. Due to, not having someone to reach out to.
Yeah.
And that's why it is so important, the culture that we propagate within any office and within our industry. It's so important that it's inclusive and supportive for everybody. So what would be your parting words of wisdom to anyone who that's thinking about working with you, or unless investigating the opportunity? What would be their next steps, and what would be your advice to them?
So I always say the next step is to jump on my website and download some of my free stuff. If you like the free stuff, you'll probably like working with me. If you don't like the free stuff, I might not be the right person for you.
Yeah.
But I think that's always a great place to start. So we have some really awesome PDF guides on starting a rent roll. We've also got some free resources on rent roll growth on the website as well. So that's usually the best place to start. Download some of those.
I totally agree. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And as you said, if somebody doesn't resonate with that, they're probably not going to resonate with you. But I know your reputation, Alan, in the industry, so I don't think that you're really going to have that issue. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm going to ask you one question before I go, because it's really important. Outside of work, what do you do to turn off?
Oh, I play the piano or the guitar. They're my two.
Oh,
that's my thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in fact, I use the piano in particular if I'm struggling to be creative in my business as well. So I use it as a way of turning off and switching off my business brain at the end of the day. But also sometimes if I'm needing to write some social content and my head's a bit too analytical and not creative enough, I can sit at the piano for a few minutes and play, and that just seems to turn on the creativity again. So
what's your favorite genre on the piano?
I'm actually a little bit of a pop and rock girl. So I quite like just opening up my Spotify playlist and then just playing along. So I've got a pretty good ear and I can just figure out how to play most things, and I'll just do that. And that's
one talent I do not have, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
And so do you get up in the helicopter very often?
I do not.
That you do not? Do you like it?
I do not like it. I get really nervous. I have been up several times, and I will continue to go up because I know that I can't be married to a helicopter pilot and just avoid that for the rest of my life. So I go up. I've been up probably 5 or 6 times, and I will continue to go up every now and then. But yeah, I get pretty nervous up there.
It's a good view though, isn't it? I know that we went on a helicopter ride in Vegas and we went down the strip.
Yeah.
In a helicopter. It was just really awesome. And then over in Alaska through the fjords and everything, it's seaplane, so it's sort of similar.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a beautiful view.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and you'll find Alan's details at the end of this video. And it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the Women in Real Estate Success series. Alan Bathgate from Rent to Roll Starter. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Julie.
You're very welcome.